Imagine, for just a second, a situation where someone in, a position of massive influence.
Like a CEO or a politician.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I mean, maybe even just a really dominant personality in your own circle, and they suddenly become utterly convinced of their own invincibility.
Right, they string together a few wins, and suddenly they're untouchable.
Totally. They get these victories, and almost overnight, they start acting like they are the literal architect of the universe.
Oh, it is the definitive arc of hubris.
Then just as quickly, you witness their spectacular, unavoidable collapse. It's wild to watch.
It really is. I mean, we have this deep-seated psychological tendency to view power and control and our own success as these permanent, unbreakable structures.
Right.
But history and, just human nature dictate a very different reality. The higher that unearned confidence gets, the harder the gravitational pull bringing it back down.
So true. So today, we are doing a deep dive into an ancient text, Isaiah chapter 10. And it reads like a playbook for every spectacular corporate collapse, political scandal, and ego trip you've ever witnessed.
It really does. It's incredibly relevant.
We're stripping down the illusion of control, looking at the limits of human power, and frankly, figuring out why realizing you aren't the center of the universe is actually like the most liberating news you'll hear all day.
Because ultimately, recognizing our own limits is the exact mechanism that strengthens our trust in God.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. The text does not ease you in, does it?
No, not at all. It functions brilliantly as a psychological mirror, but it starts right out of the gate by dissecting the anatomy of a corrupt system.
It pulls zero punches. The opening condemns these leaders who are basically systematically exploiting the vulnerable.
Right. It explicitly calls out those who decree unrighteous decrees.
Yeah, and it says they turn aside the needy from justice and, make widows their prey. They're robbing the fatherless.
Which is horrific.
Yeah.
And when a system rots from the inside like that, because the leaders are cannibalizing their own foundation for short-term gain...
It creates a power vacuum.
Precisely. It inherently creates a vacuum. And, nature abhors a vacuum. When authority is decoupled from integrity, the resulting decay attracts a predator.
Okay, so what's the predator in this historical context?
In Isaiah 10, that predator is the foreign empire of Assyria. The text frames Assyria as a rod of anger.
A rod of anger, meaning like God is using them.
Yes, exactly. They are a correcting force brought in by God to dismantle this hypocritical, rotting system in Israel.
So the corrupt leaders create the vulnerability, and Assyria is essentially nature's cleanup crew.
Right. They step in to knock over a structure that was already collapsing from, well, basically moral termite damage.
Moral termite damage, I like that. But here is where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating to me. Assyria completely misunderstands the assignment.
Completely.
This correcting force experiences massive, sweeping success, and as a result becomes just wildly arrogant.
The king of Assyria looks at his conquests and suffers this profound cognitive distortion. I mean, the imagery used to describe this hubris is incredibly sharp.
Right. He basically claims he conquered all these nations entirely by the strength of his own hand.
And his own infinite wisdom. He actually brags that he swept up the earth's riches as casually as someone gathering abandoned eggs from a nest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like an abandoned nest in the woods where no bird even chirped in protest.
It's just total domination. But the danger is in how he internalizes that domination, right? He assumes he is the actual source of the power.
Exactly.
It reminds me of a corporate middle manager who gets handed a massive, incredibly lucrative legacy account by the CEO.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. And within a week, this manager is walking around the office, feet up on the desk, entirely convinced they founded the company.
Right. They completely forget they were merely handed an assignment.
They confuse the instrument of action with the author of the action.
And that confusion between assignment and ownership is a fatal flaw in human psychology.
Because we love to take credit.
Of course we do. When we experience success, our brain's reward centers light up, and we naturally want to attribute that success entirely to our own genius.
We filter out all the external factors.
We filter out the favorable conditions, the luck, and the authority that actually placed us there. And the text delivers a brilliant rhetorical reality check to this mindset.
Right. It asks, shall the axe boast itself against him that heweth therewith?
Exactly.
Meaning, shall the axe brag to the lumberjack about how many trees it chopped down today? I mean, it's a profound commentary on ego.
It really is. We don't need to dwell on the literal mechanics of an axe and a lumberjack because the implication is so obvious.
Right. The king of Assyria, blinded by his own what does the text call it? His stout heart.
Yes, his stout heart and high looks.
He forgot he was just a tool being utilized by the Lord. He confused his temporary utility with permanent sovereignty.
And the consequence of that specific brand of overreach is immediate.
What happens?
Well, when you forget your dependency and inflate your own glory, the text promises that this arrogance will be punished, the glory will be burned up, and his thickets of power will be cut down.
So the very tool used to cut down others is subject to the same exact limits.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like a forester felling trees.
Okay, let's transition this directly into your life right now listening to this. Because, while you might not be fending off an ancient Assyrian invasion,
Probably not.
probably not, but the core truths about power, ego, and the illusion of control govern our modern lives just as strictly, don't they?
You do. The psychological trap hasn't changed at all. Authority without integrity or, success without humility inevitably creates its own destruction.
It's basically a law of physics at this point.
Think about the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
You might hold on to power for a while in a workplace or a community or even a relationship by steamrolling others or taking undue credit.
Right.
But abusive influence operates on borrowed time. The consequences are cumulative and they always catch up.
I'm going to push back on that slightly, though, just to play devil's advocate.
Sure, go ahead.
Because, if you want to be successful, if you are building a business or leading a team or just trying to survive in a really competitive environment, you need a significant amount of ego, really.
Definitely need confidence, yes.
Right, you need the audacity to believe you can execute. So where is the actual tangible line between the healthy self-belief required to innovate and becoming the arrogant axe spinning out of control?
Well, what's fascinating here is it really comes down to the perception of boundaries.
Okay, boundaries. How so?
Confidence is a necessary engine. It says, I have the capability to navigate this challenge, but I am aware of my blind spots and my dependencies.
Right, you don't know everything.
Exactly. Arrogance, on the other hand, is a delusion of self-sufficiency. It says, I am the sole architect of my reality, and the rules do not apply to me.
And that's where it gets dangerous.
Very. The moment you begin to believe you are untouchable, you become blind to your own structural weaknesses.
You stop checking your blind spots because you don't think you have any.
Precisely. Systems that expand without reinforcing their foundation eventually collapse under their own weight.
That makes total sense.
It's basic structural physics applied to human behavior. Growth without the discipline of recognizing your limits always leads to a painful correction.
So when things expand beyond what is healthy, they get scaled back.
Every time. When a leader's reach or a company's expansion extends beyond what is sustainable and grounded in reality, it will be scaled back.
Which speaks to this terrifying, yet I think crucial reality of temporary control.
Oh, absolutely.
We are practically wired to build our identities around the variables we can micromanage, aren't we?
We really are. We staple our self-worth to our job titles, our investment portfolios, our social standing.
But the underlying physics of the universe, as outlined in this text, dictate that no human system is permanent.
None of them.
Yeah.
If your entire identity is wrapped up in being the axe and being the one who executes, controls, and dominates, you are incredibly vulnerable.
Because it can all just vanish.
Exactly. The moment the macroeconomic climate shifts or a sudden illness hits or the corporate structure reorganizes, the things that felt unconditionally secure yesterday can evaporate.
You can be put back in the shed at any moment.
That's exactly right.
So if human power is fragile and control is an illusion, it seems to me that putting our ultimate trust in our own competence is basically building a skyscraper on a sinkhole.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Right. When the pressure comes and the excess is violently stripped away, what is actually left behind? Here's where it gets really interesting. The text introduces this concept of the remnant, right?
It does, yes. After the massive destruction, after this forest of arrogant power is decimated, the text states that a remnant of Israel will remain.
And what defines that surviving group?
The defining characteristic is a massive shift in reliance. They will no longer lean on the abusive temporary powers that struck them. They will lean entirely on the Lord in truth.
So the survival mechanism shifts from scale to substance.
Beautifully put, yeah.
When you are hit with a crisis, maybe a sudden financial strain, a brutal failure at work, or a deeply personal loss, the superficial layers of your life are just burned away.
It's similar to stress testing a bridge.
Oh, how so?
Well, engineers don't apply extreme pressure to a bridge because they want to destroy it. They apply pressure to expose the microfractures.
Right, to see what holds.
Exactly. They need to see exactly which parts of the structure actually possess integrity and which parts are just decorative.
That's a great way to look at it. So when your control is challenged, the goal shouldn't be to panic and try to hoard more temporary power.
No, the goal is to identify what is real and build on that. Substance survives the stress test, excess does not.
And focusing on substance completely alters your relationship with fear, doesn't it?
It fundamentally changes it.
Because there is this fascinating pivot in the text where it explicitly tells the people of Zion, the very citizens sitting in the crosshairs of this massive Assyrian military machine, not to be afraid.
Right. It promises that the burden will be lifted from their shoulder and the yoke will be destroyed.
Which, put yourself in their psychological state for a moment. That promise sounded entirely illogical.
Almost has sounded absurd. The Assyrian threat felt overwhelmingly permanent. They were an unstoppable, brutal force.
But the text pulls back the curtain to reveal a broader reality.
Yes, the threat had a strict, predetermined expiration date. Assyria was just a temporary tool with a limited mandate.
Okay, let's translate that directly to what you, listening right now, are facing. Whatever modern-day Assyrian army is camped outside your door.
Like a looming, impossible deadline.
Yeah, or a deeply toxic boss, a health scare, or a financial crisis. Your brain is likely telling you that this threat is permanent.
It always feels like it is going to dominate your life forever.
But fear shrinks dramatically the moment you understand that whoever or whatever is threatening you is bound by limits.
Recognizing those limits actually changes your physiological response to stress.
Really?
Well, when you realize that even the most intimidating forces in your life are subject to boundaries and will eventually be scaled back or removed, you stop carrying the full weight of the outcome on your own shoulders.
Wow. The yoke is destroyed because you realize you aren't the one who has to break it.
Exactly. You don't have to break it yourself.
Which brings us to the core of the spiritual application here. If human power is a fragile illusion, and our fears are based on temporary threats, then our spiritual trust has to come from realizing God is the bedrock underneath all of it.
That's the ultimate takeaway.
Trusting in a political party, a corporate structure, or honestly, our own intellect is anchoring a ship to a floating piece of driftwood.
It feels incredibly solid right up until the current changes.
Yeah. So how does this actually strengthen our relationship with God?
Well, if human power is prone to arrogance and collapse, putting our trust there is exhausting. God represents the ultimate reality and the ultimate accountability.
He is the craftsman holding the axe.
Right, understanding that hierarchy completely reorients how you navigate your daily life. True stability doesn't come from frantically trying to control the variables in your hands.
It comes from trusting the sovereignty of the one who holds you.
Exactly.
It relieves you of the exhausting cognitive load of playing God. I mean, we spend so much of our energy just utterly drained from trying to micromanage outcomes.
And protect our status and defend our little empires.
Totally. We live in this constant state of low-grade anxiety because we think we have to be the architect of our own survival.
But knowing that God actively limits the reach of unjust systems and that he intentionally protects, preserves the remnant, allows you to finally let go of the steering wheel.
You don't have to be invincible.
No, you just have to be faithful to the assignment you've been given. Accepting your own limits isn't a defeat.
It's the exact mechanism that makes room for God's limitless capability to work in your life.
Right? It deepens your trust because it serves as a constant reminder that justice, correction, and ultimate security are in his hands.
So what does this all mean? Synthesizing everything we've unpacked today, we are looking at a few undeniable structural truths about how life actually works.
First, power is a temporary assignment, not a permanent privilege.
Second, success is a psychological minefield. It can easily create a dangerous arrogance if you confuse your utility with ultimate authority.
Third, your control over your circumstances is an illusion.
And finally, when the stress test comes, substance will always outlast scale.
The encouraging to draw from this is to ruthlessly maintain your perspective under pressure.
Keep perspective.
Right. Just like that ancient Assyrian army that looked completely terrifying but was ultimately just a temporary tool, the things that loom largest and scariest in your life right now have a built-in expiration date.
So true.
Do not overestimate a temporary problem and do not underestimate the craftsman who sets its boundaries.
I love that. We spent this whole deep dive talking about the axe, the craftsman, and the felling of trees. But here's a final provocative thought we haven't touched on yet. What happens to the forest after the axe is done?
Oh, that's a great question.
The text implies that even a decimated forest leaves stumps. And from those seemingly dead stumps, entirely new life eventually grows.
Well, shoot.
Exactly. The destruction isn't the final word, it's the clearing of the ground for something more resilient. So as you look at your own life, ask yourself, are you mourning the trees that were cut down? Or are you looking for the new growth in the stump? Think about a specific area where you might be gripping control too tightly, confusing your assignment with ownership. How will you apply this information in your life?